Well, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co hosts and many other fabulous mothers today, Michele Kline with Kline Hospitality. How are you today, Michele?
I'm doing great, Stephanie. Thank you. First off, I want to say happy Mother's Day to all the crazy moms out there that still make it happen, even if they work in our very insanely motivated industry. So, happy day to everyone out there.
Absolutely. So, as our audience can see, we are doing a special Mother's Day episode. Michele, who do we have on guesting for the episode today?
We have a house full of powerful women who are in a specific stage in their life when it comes to motherhood. But it's a very diverse group, and I'm excited to introduce each one of them. So I'll go around the room very quickly, and then we'll allow each one of our beautiful ladies to tell us a little bit about their story and their journey and what they do today. And then we'll create this conversation. First off, we have Jaime Miranda. She is with the Venetian Resort. We have Chris Breed with Soleil Management and Yes and we have Sarah T from Buku. So, Jaime, let's start with you. Tell us basically what you do today, and we want you to walk us through your journey and inject a little bit of those motherhood moments in there, if you will.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Today, I am the mother to three very energy-filled children, 13, 10, and 9, and the senior vice president of hotel operations here at the Venetian Resort. I, maybe unlike many, actually went to school to come and be in hospitality. So my undergraduate degree is from Virginia Tech in hospitality and tourism management. And I decided to pursue that degree because I loved riding horses. I know, doesn't make sense, but that's true. So from there, I had some opportunities in housekeeping in Manhattan and sales in Chicago, did some internships. When I graduated or while I was in college, 9/11 happened. So my intention to go back to Manhattan and work in the hospitality industry didn't come to fruition because the industry was really hurting at that point. So I landed in DC in a assistant front desk manager role, overseeing, I think it was about 5 different departments, traditional hotel departments, and was there for about a year and a half before I got the opportunity to come to Vegas and thought, sure, why not? I'll come and be in Vegas for a year or two. I've been here 18 years. I started with the Venetian as a front desk manager. I got married. I had 3 kids. I had a couple promotions along the way. And here I am today. So it's been a great journey.
Thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll go over to Chris Breed.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Mother's Day. Thank you for having us here. My journey started that my whole family was kind of in the hospitality industry growing up, so I don't really think I had a choice. I kind of grew up running the halls of the different hotels that my father was a part of. Moved to Hawaii at a very young age, and again, didn't really have a choice in Hawaii. It's about tourism. I started very early on, right out of high school at the front desk in housekeeping, and pretty much have worked every single position in a hotel outside of maintenance. But I can still fight a good contractor now and again, so it all works. I have 1 son and 2 stepchildren and 3 grandbabies, one that born a few weeks ago, so very exciting. Being in the hospitality industry and raising a child, it worked very well for us because we were able to kind of maneuver our schedules. Hospitality isn't a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, as everyone on this call knows. So I was able to work nights while my husband worked days, so that we were able to get childcare. But it offered me a great way to grow, to raise my hand and do different positions at different resorts, and relocate me to Las Vegas, which is one of the greatest moves that I made. So Yeah, that's my story.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on, Chris. And we have Sarah T. Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry. Hi, happy Mother's Day, everyone. Thank you for having me as well. I also grew up in hospitality, so I didn't really have much of a choice either. And I also went to school for hospitality. And so I started my career in hotel operations in Orlando at the Gaylord Palms. And then I moved to Nashville with the Gaylord Opryland. But then, as my hospitality career, as many of us, it took us to different places. So I moved all over Chicago, Vegas, Nashville. And now I'm back home in Florida. But for me, growing up in hospitality and then in my, more, adult years and stuff of really being able to travel and do so many things. Then my children came during COVID, actually. They're 3 and 2, almost Irish twins, 1 year and 6 days apart. And
Wow.
it's so funny because I so often associate these days hospitality, like I'm still serving, but it's them instead of guests, right? But I definitely feel like being in the hospitality industry has, given us so many skills and traits that we can also, relate to being a mother. Just how we serve, how kind we are, teaching them to clean up after themselves.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being on our show as well, Sarah T. And Michele Kline, as a mother as well. I know most of our audience knows your background, but how about you talk about too of, being a mother in the hospitality industry?
Being a mother in the hospitality industry has been very interesting. A little bit of what Chris said, the fact that you're able to manage around your schedule and have a little bit more flexibility because we do run an operation that goes 24/7, right? I have a 17-year-old and I have 2 8-year-olds. Yes, 2. And it's been quite interesting. And for me, one of the most beautiful things has been to be able to see and experience the difference between me becoming a first time mom 17 years ago and what we have today, right? What we offer today from an accommodation standpoint, right? Also the fact that you go through your career and depending on what stage of your career you're in, it really depends on how much flexibility you have, how much you can adjust, and so on. So it's been quite a journey to have the kids with such a large separation between them from when one is born and then the other two are born. So that has been very neat too, to be able to observe if I step out of myself.
Wonderful. So going back to you, Jaime, what have you seen in the industry and also to even with your team members holding different positions, for motherhood and for moms that are, working and having to make sure that they're dealing with the demand of the hospitality industry too?
As Chris and Michele have said, I think the flexibility in the industry really can be unparalleled, right? So the opportunity to identify, depending upon your levels, right? At certain levels, you are working a shift, but buildings open 24/7. So identifying what shift works best for you and for your family. Similar, as Chris said, when I first started here, I was a front desk manager. My husband was also in the industry. So we were working different shifts and child coverage and making sure that we were doing the handoff. We literally at one point when my oldest was a baby, we both had the little the car seat base in our car, and he would literally bring my son. We were very lucky in our industry, and in this building in particular, we have childcare here on property. So he would drop my son off a child at daycare here on property, he would go up to my car on the 9th floor, put the car seat in, and then he would go to work. And then I would pick up my son on my way out the door. So just having that flexibility, having the resources, especially here in Las Vegas where the properties are larger, they really are cities. Resources for growth, resources for daycare, benefits, well, all of that, really looking at how do we wrap our arms around parents, and giving them the resources and the tools to help grow their career and find balance with their family as well.
Nicely said. And then, Chris, anything else that you would like to add of what you've seen has changed also too for motherhood in the industry?
I think that there's been a lot of multi-generational caretaking of the children. I think a lot of families are incorporating their parents, and not just dropping them off, but maybe it's a weekend, or maybe it's nights, or maybe they're picking them up from school and getting them to their soccer games. I think most of us on this call, I know Jaime and Michele have a pretty good support system, and I think that's important because it helps us not feel something that we probably shouldn't feel for having them in a formal daycare. I think also, husbands being in the industry or husbands helping out has kind of progressed a little bit. I am in a different age group. My child is 37 and has 2 daughters. So my husband was very, very open, but still it was just a different time. It still fell pretty much on my shoulders. So I think just that whole family unit and everybody kind of taking care of the family as a whole has gotten better through the years, and especially over the last few years.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. And then Sarah, since you're more with being a new mom, having the young children still at home, where do you see the future for moms in the industry?
I think that technology is going to have a huge role in how we, as mothers and as parents in general, can really operate. Like what I love what Jaime was saying, how you just make it work. Like her and her husband being able to figure out this Tetris puzzle piece of the schedules and like that. But nowadays with like gig working and these different opportunities on flexible work, and then also the industry really helping to provide more benefits, whether it be with daycare or financial aid or anything like that, so that the parents can really still be effective in that.
Perfect. And I think also too, with technology also too, of having that communication when the children are at school. So you're seeing, the pictures if the school is posting on social media, or you're getting those pop alerts of saying, oh, this is the art or what we learned today. So still feeling like you're right there along with your child while you're at work as well too, which has evolved with the technology.
Stephanie, I'd love to add something related to what you just said. The fact that you're able to see, right? Something triggered in my mind. When my oldest went to learning center, so pre-K, at the very beginning, he was we lived in South Lake Tahoe, so it was a very small, kind of like a daycare pretty much. But when we moved to Reno, then there were other opportunities, and technology was a big part of it. And I remember having the chance to see what was happening in his classroom because they had cameras. So I thought that was a great perk from having him in that school. And I was super excited, drop him off, get to work, and I realized the firewall wouldn't allow me to access the platform that was available to me to see what was happening in the classroom. And he had to be maybe 2 years and a half. He was a baby still. So I remember calling IT. I'm like, we have to talk about, there has to be a way where you can make this work for me. Well, we need some approvals. And I'm like, okay, let's just do it. What do we need to do? By the end of the day, everything was squared away. So it's huge to be able to have that opportunity, right? And technology, like Sarah was saying, is allowing us to do things like that, to have that little peace of mind and less of the concern when you're away.
That mom guilt is what I hear a lot, especially being in the hospitality industry and hotels open 24/7. And then, being in the executive team and leadership and having those calls at, middle of the night from the hotel. And then you're like, I just got the kids to sleep, or I'm just able to sleep myself. And now you have your other baby of the hotel and having to make sure things are being taken care of over there. All right, so getting into our next part here is, just balancing the demand and the responsibilities. So, would anyone like to kind of talk about how they're able to have that balance with the demands of the hospitality industry, but then also too the demands in the household and taking care of your children too?
Sure, I can at least maybe get us kicked off. When what was it, in 2016, I guess, so my oldest would have been 7 at the time. I decided I wanted to go to grad school, and but doing the way I like to think, which is the hard way, I decided that I wasn't going to go to grad school online, and I wasn't going to go to grad school in Las Vegas. So long story short, I applied for EMBA programs that were actually all in California. And I was accepted and decided to go to Wharton, which is a business school and has a satellite campus in San Francisco. So I was traveling to San Francisco every other weekend, every other Friday, Saturday for 2 years, and doing a whole lot of work, schoolwork, at home as well. And I think I was an executive director at the time, and I had the 3 kids. And so that was absolutely a test to how do I balance and how do I get everything done. And my 2 lessons were twofold. Number 1, you can't do everything. That's just reality. But number 2, and more importantly, that age-old prioritize, but recognizing that I had to decide, yes, I had to be very organized. I had to, make sacrifices. I couldn't do everything, but I also had to decide what was the most important thing in that moment, in that day, and in that week. And sometimes it was schoolwork and sometimes it was work, but it also was absolutely my kids, right? So my family is very, very deep into the baseball world. We play a lot of baseball and softball. My daughter would get mad at me if I didn't say that. And I missed games those 2 years a lot more than I did before or I have since, but I also went to games. And some days, that was what was most important. So I think it's really having the discipline of perpetually just reevaluating what are your deadlines. And sometimes your deadlines have to be your family. Sometimes your deadlines have to be your kids. Sometimes that means you're getting up at 4 in the morning to do schoolwork before work, or get up and get into the building and get caught up on some things at work. But I think it's just really important, when people say, how did you do that? I don't understand. I was like, I don't know, in the sense that there was no secret magic. I don't have any special trade or secret sauce. It's literally one foot in front of the other. And what is the most important thing for me to be doing right now?
Mm-hmm. I think that's very well said of right now, because you can be able to plan and think ahead of like, okay, yes, this is, how we're going to have our schedule, say a week or 2 weeks. And then we know within the day, things can change and your priorities are changing as well. Kids, they get sick or need to stay home, or they have now an extra activity that they want to go do with their friends. So yeah, really focusing on the right in the moment. Perfect. Sarah, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I would. I think that also what's helped me in terms of balancing things, because I'm a workaholic for sure, is just realizing that how special the time is, especially when they're younger, right? It is, and then also realizing that for me, I've always thought that I was selfish in terms of putting everything, being such a workaholic, like paying more attention to that or spending more hours on that than say my family and stuff. But also just realizing that it's not really a selfish thing as much as it's doing it for your family, right? You're doing this as to be a great example for your kids, but also because of, you know, the life that you're providing for your family. So that really helps kind of balance things out for me when I think about it that way.
Perfect. Chris,
Yeah.
anything else to add?
No, I think that Jaime mentioned it, and it's, you know, you not necessarily can do everything. You can't have it all, but it doesn't mean you can't participate in it all. You're just not going to be perfect at it all, right? And we tend to have this, overachievers that are on this call, we tend to have this feeling that not only do we have to do it, but we have to do it perfectly. And I'm sure, you know, Jamie's story is so inspirational, and I did know her when that was going on. I'm sure she slept on planes. I'm sure she studied on planes. I'm sure she balanced budgets for work on planes, but she figured it out. And you know, she's an amazing mom, and she's very involved with her children. And but it just goes to show you that it's okay for something to give a little bit. You know, it's okay to go through the drive-through and eat dinner. It's not going to kill your children. It's not going to make them not grow. You know, it's okay. And if we take a little bit of that and practice it, you know, everybody in the family can understand and is happy for it. And she did something that her children are amazing to see that.
Absolutely. It's great motivation. Michele, anything else to add with balancing the responsibilities and demand of the hospitality industry?
So I tire myself of hearing me say it's all about managing your energy when it comes to time and being organized and so on, right? And like everyone on this call was saying, you have to be able to determine what those priorities look like. And then when it's time to rest, you have to rest, you have to reboot. You hear people say you don't know what tired feels like until you have your first kid. Although that is very, very true, you don't know what tired feels like until you have twins. Trust me. To the point where, you're nursing and suddenly you have this baby and it's like, who is this? Like you can't tell which one is which at that point. And being able to 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 try to determine, can I make it to this game, yes or no, right? I remember when the twins were very little, they were babies still, not being able to make it to as many soccer games for my oldest as I could, and feeling like I'm failing. But on the other hand, I'm by myself taking care of two newborns, right? So how do we figure out a way to make sure that he doesn't feel the void, but at the same time the other two are still taken care of? Then again, it's all what we do with the way we think and feel about what's in front of us, and being able to prioritize.
Perfect. So moving along to another question here is advice to new mothers, or also to the next generation that is entering into the hospitality industry. And, we are known of having to work those long hours and the demand that's there in our industry, that it may be actually a turnoff for ones that are graduating school and wanting to become a mom, but they love the hospitality industry and they don't know what the future holds for them. But what advice would you give for moms to be that are in the hospitality industry? We'll go
Why
with
don't
you.
do roll call so that we don't
Yeah.
all talk over each other, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of advice that can be given.
Yeah. We'll start with you, Jaime.
Put me on the hot seat. I don't know that I've got any brilliant thoughts, but I would say it's an amazing industry, and there's so much to give. I think that you can really create your journey here in a way that maybe isn't so true in other industries. And what I mean by that is you have operations, you have revenue management, you have marketing, you have sales, you have procurement, you have human resources, right? You have all of these pieces of the puzzle that make up our industry. That's true about other industries, but what I think is special here is when you come in and you work hard and you make a name for yourself, you can make that move. You know, you don't have to have a marketing degree to get into marketing. You don't have to have a technology degree to get into technology. I don't know, maybe Sarah does have a technology degree, but you can make those shifts in this industry in a way that I don't think you can in other areas. And I think that also in this industry, there really is value in the whole person. We celebrate our wins together. We celebrate our successes together, and our failures, and we pick each other up. And I think it's a good industry to be a mother in for that reason. We support one another. And when you need the flexibility or you need advice or you need to have a moment, shut the door and have a moment, there's always going to be that sense of community, and folks that have been there before. I know when I got pregnant with my oldest, I had a lot of anxiety around, you know, I was very career minded. I had always been, put in the crazy hours, did all the things, was on the track, so to speak. And I had a lot of concern that there would be this perception that I was not there anymore, that my priorities had changed. I guess what I kind of was lucky with, my boss actually had her oldest maybe a year or so before I had mine. So it helped me feel more comfortable in approaching, but I was so nervous to talk to her, which in hindsight is crazy. But to tell her that I was pregnant, of course, she was so generous and excited with her emotion, with her energy, with her supporting me. And that really helped me to know that it was okay. And to even feel that way is crazy in hindsight, but I was worried about my career. And, you know, when I came back from maternity leave, I did take my full maternity leave. And that would be one thing I would say, like, take your time with your baby. The building will
do it.
still be standing. Take your time with your baby. When I came back from maternity leave, I felt like I had to prove myself again, that I was still committed, that I was still here, that I was still career oriented. And again, my boss at the time was very kind in reminding me that she knew me well and that I didn't have to prove myself. So I think that would be my message. Maybe sorry, that was kind of long-winded, but take your time, enjoy your time, you know, with your baby, with your family, and just communicate. There are people in this industry that are going to support you and be excited for you.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thanks, Jaime. How about Chris? How about for you? Do you have any advice for moms to be or looking to be into the industry, knowing the demand is for our industry?
Enjoy every single moment of being a mom because it goes by very quickly. Your job will be there. 9 times out of 10, they do support you. Like Jaime said, sorry, I keep referring to Jaime, but she's talking before me. So, like she said, you know, knocking on that door going, do you have a minute? And explaining to them, you know, that you're pregnant. It's you'll figure it out. And we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves and, you know, just enjoy it. Motherhood's an amazing thing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. And Sarah?
I would say, you know, kind of along the same lines as Chris is about enjoying it is, you know, we talk about all the hard work and the long hours that our industry has, and sometimes it's kind of easy to forget about, you know, the luster gets lost and stuff. But I was actually just had my first spring break with the boys, and we took them to Orlando and stayed at a hotel, and just like to see the magic on their face of like, oh, this huge hotel, and like, you know, it was like the first time staying there, and you know, just really being able to share the magic of our industry, and you know, everything from how people and the staff make us feel, that, you know, the different amenities, all of that with your children.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. How about you, Michele?
So I would say that on the one hand, communicate, right? Lean in and have the confidence to communicate anything. So it's going to be very, very nerve wracking to break the news after those, you wait those 3 months, but eventually the 13th week comes around and you have to communicate it. Lean in and communicate. It's okay, right? This is what we do. I mean, there's a reason why we keep making more people in this world, right? It's a natural process and it should feel natural for us to be able to tell our supervisor, I'm going to have a baby. This is awesome, right? The other thing is communicate with your kids. Explain to your kids. Once, they may be little, but they understand a lot more than we think. So advising them, I'll be back home on Friday. I used to travel a lot. We got to the point where I would arrive at the airport, kiss my husband, and he would go straight to daycare to pick up our son. So, that happens. So allowing them to know, I'll be back on Friday, or I'll be home by the time you have your soccer practice on Thursday, whatever that looks like, let them know what's going on. I have to go to this event because this is what's happening, right? So then you make them part of your life as well, and they get to understand a little more about what you're passionate for. Who are you doing this for, right? So communicating both sides with your kids and with people at work, and then leaning in. There is so much, like Jamie was saying, that you can do within our industry. So if it's time for you to pause for a second, that's great. Don't just leave. Don't quit unless you really want to stay home with your kids, which is 100% acceptable. And by the time that you're ready, you can jump back on the train. Even though the train is running, you can still do it. Just communicate what those needs look like, because there may be an opportunity that they can adjust your schedule. There may be an opportunity that you can do the next 9 months working in a different department, and you can learn something new because that adds value to your brand. So that's my nugget.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michelle. And I would have to say, too, going along the lines with communicating, but also, too, of communicating at the different stages where you are in motherhood. So we talk about, okay, yes, I, rated the 12 weeks. I'm ready to announce, I'm going on this journey of having my first child. And then you may have stepped back. You may have went into a different department to make sure that you're able to, take care of your child and be there. And then now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, now my child's going to be entering into school. What is that going to look like? How am I going to feel on the first day that leaving my child at school all day? And I think that also too is very important, to being able to communicate at the different stages and really building that mom hospitality tribe, because we've all going through it at different stages, and the kids are at different ages too, to being able to kind of seeing, okay, what should I expect next. All right, so now with WTF Walk the Floor. So we always talk about a WTF moment related to our topic, or just an aha moment. So I want to be able to have you all share either a WTF mouth opening moment or memorable experience related in the industry to motherhood. And we'll start again with you, Jamie.
Well, let's see. For me, I go back to when I was pregnant with my oldest.
Is that what we always remember? It's like we always go back to the
Yeah.
first one.
It's really
You have all
awful.
these
Don't
pictures
tell
of the
him.
first one, right?
Yeah, well, it's awful, and don't tell him. But my youngest son, he's sandwiched. It's like, remember, my daughters, my youngest, my oldest. Yeah, but you know what I remember with all three of them, but it really hit me with my oldest. It was the first time that I was not in control of my narrative, of my story, and my kind of what components of my personal life were shared at work. And maybe that sounds a little bit odd. But it really took some getting used to that people knew that I was having this life-changing event happening in my personal life. If you think about it, most of the things that are going on at home, you decide whether or not you're sharing that at work or whether or not people know that. And if you're a man and your wife's pregnant or you're having a baby, it's only what you share when you share. But for a woman, obviously, it's at a certain point you can't hide it. And so for me, that intersecting with my professional career was really very impactful for me, and not being able to control that narrative. And so then thinking about, okay, well, why do I care? Why is that important to me? And then how do I process that myself, and how do I then, what is my narrative? What do I want to share? What do I not want to share? How do I, where am I setting boundaries? How do I feel about people touching my belly all day long? That's what they do, right? That's not an industry thing. That's just
that's a fact.
Some people have stronger, but it didn't really bother me for the most part. Every once in a while, I was a little like, okay, that's weird. I don't know you like that. But but I think it's just something to think about. Is people are going to know that part of what is happening in your life, which to me felt very personal and private, but it wasn't, obviously. So kind of thinking through that, and if that matters to you, maybe it doesn't. But if it does, kind of thinking about it.
Perfect. Thanks, Jaime. And how about Chris? How about for you? Any WTF moments?
Yeah.
Or advice?
So I kind of thought back, and I have been given the opportunity to move up in different companies throughout my career. And some of the positions I took, and some of them I didn't. And it was because it was not the right time for me for whatever reason. The first time was completely based on, I wanted to spend more time with my son. I didn't want to have the responsibility. I didn't want to move into a leadership role. And I spent way too much time agonizing about it. And I, wrote charts and pros and cons, talked to everybody I knew. And at the end of the day, I made the decision that I wasn't going to do it. And it was a very hard time to walk in and say, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, but this just isn't the right time. And of course, I'd convinced myself that 1, I was going to be fired. 2, I was going to be demoted. 3, it was the last time I was ever going to be promoted in my whole entire life. And at the time, I was mid-20s, but I had convinced myself, like we do so many times, that was the end of my career. But I was choosing to stay, to not take on a role that would take more time. And this amazing WTF moment happened the next day. Is I went to work and everybody treated me the same. my desk was still there. I still had the same schedule. There was like never another conversation. And 6 months down the road, everybody was, another position became available. And I don't even think I took that one. It took me a minute before I really jumped into leadership. But it just taught me that, you don't have to accept everything. You put way too much pressure on yourself that you have to take it, and the world is going to end if you don't. You're going to have this big black mark on you of you can't, you're not promotable, or she doesn't want to move up. So that was my the next day was my WTF.
Wow. Thanks, Chris. And Sarah, how about for you?
I would say mine are moments, not just one moment, but it's, I think the pregnant brain thing is a real thing. And I think that it continues on after. So like realizing that I could have a meeting yesterday and forget it immediately the next day, or just like, remembering things that I don't really need to remember, but the ones that I really do need to, just all that. So I think that, my WTF moments are that, and also kind of training myself to, okay, well, how do I organize myself? How do I counter that? Because, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Maybe it's like a hormonal thing or.
Wow, thank you. I know, I do hear it though, and even after pregnancy of being like, oh wait, hold on, the kids, where are they? And making sure, living out of the calendar.
Oh, I left my kids in daycare. Like I said earlier, my husband and I would do the pass on, and depending upon who was doing what. Sometimes he would pick. There was a while there where he was doing most of the pickup, and one day I was supposed to, and I was like probably halfway home, and I called him like, okay, what are you doing? What's dinner? Whatever it was, I don't know. And he was like, you have Q, right? And I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't. He's safe, but I don't have him. So I had to turn around and go back and get him.
No judgment.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Don't judge me.
All right, Michele, how about you close us off?
So the pregnancy brain is very, very real. I'm going to age myself here for a minute. But when I was pregnant with my first, we didn't have phones where we could make notes to or dictate on, right? And I remember realizing very quickly, oh my gosh, unless I do something about this, because I rely heavily on my brain, I got to start writing things down. So I used to carry this teeny tiny little notebook with a tiny pencil everywhere. Anyway, my WTF moment, it's kind of sad. I was choking up a little bit when Chris was telling hers, because it's, how sometimes you have to make those difficult decisions, right? And also the fact that we should normalize some things, like dad being the one that's very involved, right? Or this is a secret, and how long do we keep it a secret, right? My moment is, I was pregnant very early on with the twins, and I walk into my doctor's office for a checkup. And as I turn, I realized that the director of security and surveillance for one of my properties was there, and he locked eyes on me. And I was like, oh no. And I just looked at him, and in my brain, I was telling him, please don't say anything. Let me be the one breaking this news. And I don't know if he got that message telepathically or not, but he looked at me and he nodded, kind of like saying, I get this. And he never said anything. No one ever said anything until I brought it up one day, eventually, when I was showing. And he came to me after a meeting, after me breaking the news, and he said, congratulations. I just didn't want to say anything early on. And that for me was like, whew. But it's a WTF type of moment, because I feel like we should normalize it, right? It should be something that it should not be scary to say it. And it should be okay to be able to hide it at the beginning, because obviously anything can happen the first few weeks. So that's my moment. I have many other moments, but yes, like Sarah was saying, many moments.
Yeah, there's definitely me not being a mom, but I remember being at the front desk very young and having these guests give me their liquid gold of breast milk, and we would then have to be able to store it. And I'm like, all right, just breast milk. And the mom was like, no, I need to know exactly what kitchen this is going to be located. This is when I'm going to be picking it up. And I'm like, okay. But now being older and having more friends that are moms and realizing, yes, it is very important to making sure you're having a track on, especially if you're a hotel that has multiple kitchens, of exactly where that's located. Or also too, with the moms that are coming and asking about the refrigerators in the room. Is it a real refrigerator, or is it just keeping things at a fresh state, because we don't want to be able to spoil the milk? But definitely learned very early on, it was a high commodity price value.
For sure.
Yes. Well, thank you, moms and our mom listeners and moms to be. This is a great episode, being able to celebrate Mother's Day in the industry. And thank you to all you beautiful moms being on our guest panel today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Mother's Day.